traveling down life's highway, full of goodness and grace. I wake up every morning with a smile upon my face, 'cause I know everything I need to know. But I know there's still more to know. So I don't say no, let spirit flow and let it continue to grow. And know that I feel alright when I'm flowing with the river of life. I feel alright, 'cause I'm one with the love and light. I feel alright.
Good morning and welcome to Center for Spiritual Living Rogue Valley's live Sunday service. I'm Reverend Kimberly Hawkins. We're here to deliver a message of hope, faith, peace, and oneness. We're here with just a skeleton crew of 9 people, and I'd like to introduce our musicians for this morning, Anton Mizerak and Laura Berryhill, who will be doing our opening song for us, Michael Stillwater's In the Light, in the Love, in the Glory.
In the light, in the love, in the glory. I am as God created me. In the light, in the love, in the glory. In the light, in the love, in the glory. In the light, in the love, in the glory. In the light, in the love, in the glory. In the light and the love and the glory, in the light and the love and the glory, in the light and the love and the glory, I am as God created me. In the light, in the love, in the glory, I am as God created me. In the light, in the love, in the glory. In the light and the love and the glory. In the light and the love and the glory. In the light and the love and the glory, I am. In the light and the love and the glory. In the light and the love and the glory. In the light and the love and the glory, I am. In the light and the love and the glory. In the light and the love and the glory. In the light and the love and the glory, I am. In the light and the love and the glory. In the light and the love and the glory. In the light and the love and the glory.
So I'm so honored that each of you decided to join us this morning, whether you are viewing us live on Facebook or viewing the recording of the video later on, either on Facebook or on our website or YouTube. We are an open and affirming spiritual community, and our mission is to teach spiritual tools to transform personal lives and help make a world that works for everybody. So what I know is that each of us, each of you, is truly created in the light, in the love, in the glory of one Spirit, God, whatever we call it, that source of all. So we're going to begin with an opening prayer. So I'm going to invite you to close your eyes if that's comfortable, as we just go within for a moment. Turning within, being still. That place where I begin to sense and remember and know that there's one life that created everything we see, everything we are. God, Spirit, Atman, whatever we choose to call it, the creative intelligence of the universe. I know it as absolute love, pure peace that passeth all rational understanding. I know it is wholeness, as beauty, as joy, and so much more. It is everywhere present, all-powerful, all-knowing, and it wants only the best for all of its creation. I am in the light and the love and the glory, born of that one presence, and this is the truth for each one on the planet. We are individual, precious, beautiful expressions of that one life, and as such, we can never be separate from our Creator or separate from each other. And so I speak my word this morning for a planet that is in the throes of a big challenge, a pandemic affecting everyone, whether it's through illness, loss of a job, financial concerns, isolation. Despite what is going on in our physical universe, I know that God is present. Love is present. I know that through this experience, we will emerge stronger. We will emerge with a new life, a new understanding, a new connection to each other and to the source which birthed us. I know it's a time for coming together, even though we cannot come together physically, to celebrate the truth, the spiritual truth of who we are, the golden thread that runs through all major faith traditions, that we are love incarnate, that we are here to do to our neighbors what we would want done to us. And so I bless each one, wherever you may be this morning, in your seat, in your sofa, in your jammies, knowing that we come together to remember the truth, to support one another. We bless everyone, every sentient being across our globe, and Mother Earth herself, knowing that love is present, truth is present, oneness is the truth for everyone here. A special blessing this morning for those first responders, those working in hospitals, labs, researchers, those still working in grocery stores and essential businesses to provide us what we need. And I say a special blessing for those in the room with me this morning, bringing to you this message of hope, of love, of light. Blessings, my friends, in deep love. I release this word now into that heart of God, knowing as all prayers, this one is heard and it is answered. And we say together, and so it is. Amen. I'm going to turn it over once again to our musicians. Today is Palm Sunday for Christians, celebrating that time when Jesus rode into Jerusalem in a very triumphant way on a donkey, signifying his humility, not on a horse, signifying a warrior or a king. And Laura Berryhill has written a beautiful song, If You Could See, Hosanna, about the love, the Christ love, which lives in each of us. So I give you once again Laura Berryhill and Anton Mizerak.
You are the conscience, you are the kindness, you are responsible for thought and deed. You are the connector, you are the protector of all that's good in this world. You could feel and grace. If you could see as I see, you are my eyes in this world. If you could do as I do, you are my hands in this world. If you could feel as I feel, you are my heart in this world. If you could dream as I dream, you are my hope in this world.
What a beautiful reminder. We are each the heart, the hands, the hope of God in this world. Thank you so much, Laura. For our reading this morning, I've selected 3 quotes. The first is from Norman Vincent Peale. Become a possibilitarian. No matter how dark things seem to be or actually are, raise your sights and see possibilities. Always see them, for they are always there. From Frederick Langbridge, 2 men look out the same prison bars. One sees mud, the other stars. And finally from Rabindranath Tagore, faith is a bird that feels dawn breaking and sings while it is still dark. Faith is a bird that feels dawn breaking and sings while it is still dark. So this morning, while we are experiencing a dark time across the planet, I am going to invite us to sing, to chant, and we chose, I and our musicians this morning, the Green Tara chant as our song. And synchronistically, I read after we had made that decision that on March 29th, just a week ago, His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, was asked in these dark times during this coronavirus pandemic if he had some spiritual advice for people. And he suggested that chanting this very chant, the Green Tara mantra, could be helpful. It is a chant about liberation from suffering, fear, disease, not only for our own benefit, but for the benefit of all sentient beings. It opens our hearts, ignites our compassion. I'm going to give you the words, and I know you'll catch on very quickly. The words are Om Tare Tare, Tu Tare Soha. Om Tare Tare, Tu Tare Soha. Laura and Anton.
There's a tu-ray in there. Om Tare Tare, Tu Tare, Tu-ray Soha. Tu-ray is, this is a bija. It's a seed syllable chant to activate those centers of compassion within us. Here we go. Om Tare Tare, Tu Tare Tu-ray Soha. 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 tare tare, tu tare tu re soha. Om 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 tare tare, tu tare tu re soha. Tare tu re soha. Om tare tare, tu 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 tare tu re soha. Tare tu re soha. Om tare tare, tu tare tu re soha. Om tare tare, tu tare tu re soha.
I don't know how it feels for you, but in this room, it feels different. There's a feeling of peace and well-being. Thank you so much, Anton and Laura. Yeah. In Centers for Spiritual Living, we have a suggested theme each month, and this is April, the beginning of a new month. And the theme that was suggested was compiled several months ago, was Bright Beginnings. And in a way, that's appropriate. Bright beginnings. We're in the midst of spring, springing up. The daffodils are blooming in my front yard, and the leaves are coming out. It's also the time of Passover, which was the time the Jewish people were liberated from slavery in Egypt, and symbolically that celebration now is about liberation from old limiting beliefs and fears. And it's Easter time. This is the Holy Week for Christians. So again, it's the resurrection, the crucifixion and the resurrection into eternal life of Jesus, symbolizing our eternal life. So all of those things speak to bright beginnings, but somehow in the midst of this pandemic, with the numbers increasing every day, it just didn't feel quite like the right theme for me. So I made the decision, for our center at least, to choose a different topic for the month. And so I chose the phrase, the Phoenix process. I borrowed it from our book of the month, which was also chosen several months ago, but is right on for what we're experiencing now. The name of the book is Broken Open: How Difficult Times Can Help Us Grow, by Elizabeth Lesser. So the phoenix bird, of course, most of you know, is a legendary bird. The Egyptians believed that every 500 years, this bird renewed its quest for a new self, and realizing that it had to release limiting views of itself and limiting beliefs and views. And so it built itself a funeral pyre, burned itself into ashes, and then was resurrected with a young, powerful, new life that was a combination both of what it was and something even better than what it could be. And so I love that metaphor for what we're going through right now, a phoenix process. This message this morning I entitled, When One Door Closes. And of course we know the rest of that phrase, another opens. Sometimes people say God opens a window or another door. And I think that we've all experienced the closing of many doors these past few weeks and a couple months. What doors have closed, my goodness. Sometimes doors to lives of people that we love have closed, at least physically. The gyms, the places of business, the restaurants, life as we know it, doors have closed. Our doors to our homes have closed. We're not receiving visitors. We're sheltering in place. And yet we know that even though many doors have closed, it is an opportunity for many other doors to open. It's a scary time, and I think that it's okay to admit that and to feel that. We teach in Science of Mind, and I mentioned this a couple weeks ago, that when we experience a breakdown of some sort, there's always a breakthrough that follows, not necessarily immediately. And the bigger the breakdown, the bigger the breakthrough that will follow. Our founder of Science of Mind, Ernest Holmes, said this. He said, "The spiral of life is upward. We should remember that we have but started on an eternal ladder, whichever spirals upward." Now, when you think about a spiral, there's a downturn and an upturn, but the spiral spirals up continually. And I think that's a good image for what we're experiencing right now. In our book of the month, Elizabeth Lesser says, if we want to turn a painful event into a phoenix process, we must first name what needs to burn within us. That's a tall order right now. We need to name what needs to burn within us. So what could this be? Well, fears. We have a lot of fears going on right now. Fear of change, of loss, fear of others. I was in the supermarket yesterday trying to make eye contact with people as we were maintaining distance. And for many people, they seemed consumed with the fear and kind of gone inward. And I understand. I have compassion for that kind of fear. So the question I want you to think about, as well as me this morning, is, what must burn within you right now? What are you called to let go, to turn into ash so that we might rise with a new life? For some of us, it may be the inability to feel feelings. It's not fun right now to feel our feelings sometimes, but we need to feel them in order to move through them. Perhaps it's a sense of unworthiness or shame, anger. Lesser in her book says that for women, oftentimes what needs to be burned within us is spending too much time trying to please other people, with little respect for our own needs and our own opinions. That is frequently something that females are trained to do. And she says for men oftentimes, and again, this is a generality, it isn't true for everybody, but for men oftentimes what needs to burn is the inability to feel, the resistance to feel, that kind of macho stance that we have to be strong. And she says that inability to feel compassion sometimes allows our men to live a half-lived life. Whereas if we can be open-hearted and empathetic, there's an aliveness and a connection that happens. I'm reminded as we go through this time of loss that Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's 5 stages of grief are applicable. And many of you know those. It's denial, anger, depression, bargaining, please God, I'll be good if you just let me get through this. And finally, acceptance. And if you think about it, she developed those 5 stages relating to people who were experiencing illness, fatal illnesses in particular. But later it was discovered that they also apply to people grieving the loss of somebody, grieving the loss of something. Maybe it's grieving the loss of a physical ability or grieving the loss of a loved one. And so just to be aware that you don't go through those stages, boom, 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 and then you're done. Sometimes you cycle back and forth. So one day you might be in denial about the situation. It seems surreal, doesn't it? It seems sometimes like we're in a science fiction movie. And maybe sometimes we're angry at the situation, angry at the powers that be who may not be handling things the way we'd like it. Some of us have experienced depression. Some of us have experienced bargaining. So to just be able to be present with those feelings, to be compassionate with ourselves as we feel those feelings, and to also turn to our spiritual practices to lovely meditation like we did this morning, to reading, to reaching out perhaps to those who are shut-ins and perhaps living alone and needing a gentle reminder that they're not alone. We've been having calls each morning at 9 o'clock in my spiritual community on Zoom, and we've advertised them on our Facebook page, Center for Spiritual Living Rogue Valley, so anyone's welcome to join. And it's been a great time to keep in touch with each other and to share our experience with each other. Some days, some people on the call are feeling upbeat and they've enjoyed gardening or connecting with people and having more time. And other people may be feeling the oppressive feeling of being shut in. And anyway, for me, when I think about what needs to burn, I've been aware lately this past week of feeling some unforgiveness. You know, I've done a lot of forgiveness work in my life, some pretty major forgiveness work. But a couple people came to mind this week that I realized I was still holding a judgment about or a grudge against. And as I shared this at the breakfast table, I started to weep because I realized why. Why would I be holding on to something like this? When I look at this pandemic and what's going on, it just didn't make any sense anymore. There's a beautiful quote from Carlos Castaneda. He said, "An immense amount of pettiness is dropped when your death makes a gesture to you." An immense amount of pettiness. It gives us perspective, doesn't it? So what are we called to let go of? I think other examples can be our frenetic pace of life, which now has been coming to a standstill. You know, do without being present to what is, without being grateful for what we have in this present moment. Yeah, what don't we have time for anymore when we return to normal? And, you know, really, we're not going to return to normal. The world as we know it will be no more. It is going to change. So we're in this Phoenix process, and as luck would have it, or synchronicity, divine synchronicity is what I would like to call it, I noticed one of our former congregants, a young woman. We knew her by the name of Shauna Jennings. Some of you may know her. Shauna moved to Hawaii and took on the name Rhapsody Phoenix. And on her Facebook page this week, she posted a poem she had written, which is really about the Phoenix process. I'd like to read it to you because I think it's very apropos for all of us right now. I celebrate and mourn. I celebrate and mourn. And through this alchemy, I am reborn. As the fabric of who I thought I was is torn, shattered, broken, the floodgates are open. The waters of love can flood my holy essence. I will hold the shadow in total presence. Into the deepest wells of my soul, I submerge. Through the portal of internal unification, I emerge. I am the Phoenix. Beautiful, beautiful Rhapsody Phoenix. I will hold the shadow in total presence. Time for us to look at the shadow side, to look at our unforgiveness, to look at those things that we would like to release that maybe we're not really fond of. And into the deepest wells of my soul, I emerge. This is an opportunity to listen to the call of our soul, which we don't always do willingly, do we? At least if you're like me. Through the portal of internal unification. Unification with the old me and the new me, with the source of my being, with what we are all creating together. I emerge. I am the Phoenix. Wow. When one door closes, we can appear to be in darkness for a while, and I think that is partly what's going on right now. We meet ourselves in the process, and we have the opportunity out of the ashes to grow wings. Lesser says in her beautiful book, Broken Open, if we don't go looking beneath the surface, the soul comes looking for us. And I think that's what happens right now for all of us, or most of us. The soul is coming looking for us. And so again, I ask each of us, what lessons does your soul want to learn from this experience? It's easy to tune out the call of the soul. But when we do, we end up feeling somewhat numb and dead, or perhaps we disguise our feelings by blaming and being angry, becoming physically ill. Sometimes we get restless or weary or do self-destructive things. Everything that happens to us in life is a blessing, whether it comes as a gift, wrapped in happy times, or as a heartache, a loss, or a tragedy. That's from Elizabeth Lesser. So I've been thinking about that in my own life, and I think we've all experienced times of challenge, whether it was losing a loved one, losing a physical ability, having the challenge of a very serious illness, divorce. For me, it was 20 years ago, after 24 years of marriage, going through a divorce. I know many of you have experienced that. It is not fun. It is a deeply, deeply sad and painful experience. And yet when I look back on that now, there was indeed a gift in it, because I found the real me. I found a more empowered sense of myself. I found my spiritual practice. I set myself on the path to become a practitioner and a minister. So it came as a gift wrapped in difficulty, but it definitely was a gift. I'm thinking, too, of the banter that we do. You know, how often have you met a friend in the grocery store and said, "How are you?" And what's the response usually? "Oh, great. Oh, fine. And how are you?" "Oh, fine." And you know, sometimes that's not the truth. And I think it's okay for us to begin to share what's really going on with us, not to stay mired in it. But when we admit what's going on for us and don't pretend that our life is all perfect and everything is in order, we give permission to the other person to do the same thing. We've experienced this on our morning calls this week, where there's been a really deep, genuine sharing of what is going on. We don't have to safeguard our hearts. It's okay to have our hearts be undefended. And it's okay to reach out for prayer, for support. We're offering 2 classes that have been postponed right now, but online classes. And if you go to our website, Center for Spiritual Living, Rogue Valley, you'll be able to see a foundations class, a practical mysticism class. I'm just encouraging all of us to do what we need to do to get the support we need and to offer the support to those that we can see need that support. As we move to close this time of my message, I wanted to talk about one of the stories in Elizabeth Lesser's book, Broken Open. She tells many stories that she considers to be Phoenix process stories. And this one is about someone who many of us knew about and loved and who passed recently, Ram Dass. Ram Dass was an interesting character, a deep, amazing teacher, spiritual teacher. Kicked out of Harvard, and becoming a guru to many. Elizabeth Lesser knew him for many years. They were teachers together in something called the Omega Institute. And she talks about, she really knew 2 Rams. One was the amazing, brilliant, spiritual teacher that helped her and so many other people grow and become spiritually deep and go through dark times to emerge. And the other was the more human side of Ram Dass, where they had a business partnership, and he would often accuse her of being controlling, and she would accuse him of having an issue with female authority. And then one night in 1977, you may know the story, Ram was 65 years old, lying in bed, thinking about how he could finish a book he was working on. It was a book about aging. And he was thinking, how could he really, there was something unfinished about the manuscript. How could he really write about the aging process when he was 65 and still vibrant and traveling and teaching, and he didn't know about having issues physically or growing old. And so he began in bed that night to imagine himself as a 90-year-old man with difficulty walking and pain. And the phone rang in the middle of his fantasy, and he got up to answer the phone. And as he got up, his leg gave way beneath him. He fell to the floor, and he realized that he couldn't speak. He managed to pick up the phone and the receiver of the phone, and his friend said to him, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" Ram couldn't speak. His friend said, "Tap once if you're needing help. Tap twice if you're okay." And he kept tapping twice as if he were okay, and the friend knew something was wrong. So the friend showed up at his house, and sure enough, Ram was still on the floor. He had had a massive cerebral hemorrhage. Couldn't walk, couldn't talk. Doctors didn't know if he ever would again. It was a whole year before his friend Elizabeth Lesser went to visit Ram. Her own father had passed away right before he had his stroke. And she drove to his home in California, walked in and yelled to him in a joking way, "Honey, I'm home." And he said, "Welcome home." And they sat and they talked as best as Ram could. Even after a year, his speech was very halting. But he managed to communicate, and she often finished his sentences. She took his hand because she noticed Ram was different. There was something different about him. She said to him, "I think the stroke has made you more human, more a real human being, and more an eternal soul, both at the same time." Ram's eyes filled with tears. He squeezed her hand. "Grace," he said. "Stroke is heavy grace, fierce grace. Before stroke," he continued in his halting speech, "before happy grace, love grace, good things kept happening to me. Then stroke, lose things, also grace, fierce grace." "I understand," I said. "What did you lose? What did fierce grace take away?" "Ego," Ram Dass said, making the motion of a blade slashing his throat. "Ego gone. Nothing more to lose. Ego breaks open. Then you see who you really are." Here's a passage from the book that Ram Dass eventually finished and wrote about his experience. "For me to see the stroke as grace required a perceptual shift. It was a shift from taking the point of view of the ego to taking the point of view of the soul. I used to be afraid of things like strokes, but I've discovered that the fear of the stroke was worse than the stroke itself. I've now been given a fully rounding understanding of grace. What has changed through the stroke was my attachment to the ego. The stroke was unbearable to the ego, and so it pushed me into the soul level, because when you bear the unbearable, something within you dies. My identity flipped over, and I said, so that's who I am, a soul. I ended up where looking at the world from the soul level is my ordinary, everyday state, and that's grace. That's almost the definition of grace. And so that's why, although from the ego's perspective, the stroke is not much fun, from the soul's perspective, it's been a great learning opportunity. When you're secure in the soul, what's to fear? Since the stroke, I can say to you with an assurance I couldn't have felt before, that faith and love are stronger than any changes, stronger than aging, and I am very sure, stronger than death. Wow, guys, that is a Phoenix experience. I think we're called right now to a greater faith in the divine, a greater journey into what our soul is calling us to be. As Carlos Castaneda said, I think we're called to releasing pettiness, allowing it to fall away, and to really understanding why we're here, what we're here to express. Elizabeth Lesser has said that her prayers have changed. Used to be when she saw somebody on the brink of an abyss, let's say we know somebody who's contracted the coronavirus, her prayer used to be for them to be able to walk around that abyss. And now her prayer is for them to stay awake as they fall. I pray that each one stays awake. I pray that we choose to go into the abyss willingly, and that our fall is cushioned by faith. Faith that at the bottom will be caught and taught and turned toward the light. I pray that this experience, my friends, turns us toward the light, all of us, across the planet. And now I'd like you to join me in a meditation, if you would. So as Anton and Laura provide a musical background for us, I invite us to close eyes, to get comfy, to lean back into the chair wherever you are sitting. I like to say, imagine that we're leaning into divine arms, those arms that love and support and guide and supply us always, if we allow them to. So leaning into spirit, leaning into love, leaning into unity. Let's spend a few moments just paying attention to the breath, breathing in and breathing out. Taking a deep, slow, complete breath in. Holding at the top for a couple beats. And then a slow, slow, complete breath out. And I invite us now to imagine that we're breathing into our heart space. Allowing our hearts, even in the midst of a painful period, to open, to become undefended. Breathing into that center of us. When we say, here I am, we tend to put our hand here on our hearts. That place where we are most connected to the divine, because the divine is love, unconditional, pure, fierce love. So as we allow ourselves to simply feel whatever it is our heart is wanting us to feel. Perhaps we can name it. Perhaps we're not able to right now. But just allowing whatever feeling is there to be felt. If there's any place else in the holy body temple that is holding on to tension, notice that. And perhaps draw a deep cleansing breath into that area and release the tension. Imagine you're breathing it out on the out breath. And sitting in the stillness for just a moment, breathing in and breathing out. Allowing that heart to open even bigger. Fierce love, allowing fierce love, fierce grace to enter that heart. And now I invite us to ask, what is it my soul is calling me to know right now in this experience? In this Phoenix experience, what is it my soul wants me to know? Knowing if an answer comes, wonderful. If it doesn't, as we have opened our heart, the answer may come later, anytime today or in our dreams this evening. What is my soul calling me to know or to do? And now we ask, what is it I'm being called to let burn within me? What is it that needs to burn, to be released, to be put on that funeral pyre and reduced to ashes? Perhaps it's unforgiveness. Perhaps it's a feeling that I have to do everything alone. Perhaps it's unworthiness or judgments or anger. What is it for you? What is needing to be burned within you, released now, and left behind? What is it I'm willing to let go? Pettiness, old limiting ways of being. And finally, we ask, out of this experience of having doors closed, having life as we know it turn to ash, in this experience of social isolation and a new way of being for now, what is it I'd like to keep from this experience? What is it I would like to embrace and continue to be or to feel or to do? What am I willing and wanting to keep in the new life that will emerge, that is emerging? Perhaps it's just slowing down. Perhaps it's a more radical way of self-care. Perhaps it's compassion and reaching out to those I care about or spending more time in quiet. What is it I'm wanting to keep in my new life? And finally, as we commune in this heart space with our essence, knowing that we're connected at essence with all hearts across the globe, is there anything else my heart, my soul, is wanting me to know right now, right here? What else am I to know? Once again, whatever answers have come, we bless them, we listen, we consider, knowing that as we have opened our hearts, our souls, as we have been willing to listen to the soul's call, that door is open. And as we continue to listen, we are guided, we are blessed. Knowing that one power, that one presence, that one life that birthed each of us is ever available to us in the stillness within our hearts, in the quiet. It is peace. It is wholeness. It is love. It is power. And it wants to express itself more fully, more purely as each one of us on the planet. This is an opportunity for us to be purified in the flames of this experience, in the burning away of pettiness of what no longer serves, in the burning away of any idea that we're separate from our source or from each other, of any idea that any life is less valuable than another. And so I truly know that this Phoenix process serves us. It is a gift wrapped perhaps in difficult clothing. That if we take the time to be still and to know and to listen, our hearts are united across this globe, and out of this experience emerges a new life, a new way of being in our own personal lives, in our families, in our cities, in our country, and in our world. A healing is happening. That new beautiful phoenix bird and all of its beauty and its golden and red plumage is emerging, a combination of the old and the new. No longer limited, no longer having an earthly vision, but able to see now with the eyes of the divine. This is my prayer for each one on the planet right now. And And I speak my word, knowing as we do walk this difficult path for the time being, that God, Spirit, love, wholeness is right where each one is. No one is alone. No one. When one door closes, new and beautiful doors open if we're willing to look up, to pay attention, to be aware. And so I bless each one on the planet today, each one of you, wherever you may be, knowing with an open heart, that hope, the hands of God, we go forth to serve one another, to create a world that works for everyone and that works for Mother Earth herself. Clean air, clean skies, clean waters, health and wholeness emerges. All is well, my friends. And it's okay to feel along the way, to go through the stages, because there is loss, and yet there is new beginnings, bright beginnings. And so in gratitude to speak these words, to know these truths, blessing all of us, no matter what faith tradition we follow or not. We are one. There's one truth, one life, living itself as each of us. It is beauty, it is joy, it is unity. In gratitude to speak these words now for all of us, I release this word, I release this prayer into the heart of the divine, knowing it is heard, it is answered, it is done. It is done unto us as we believe. So a happy Passover, a happy Easter, a happy rising, a happy new life. We say together in closing, and so it is. Amen. Thank you, Anton and Lauren. Thank you all. Wow. May take me a minute to come out of that. So as we close, just a couple announcements. As you are able, I know many of us are affected financially by this situation, but as you are able, I encourage you to give to this center if you feel spiritually fed here, to other nonprofits and other spiritual centers. Give where you're fed. It is a spiritual practice. There are many ways to give to our center. You can do it by check. You can do it online. And I also encourage you to stay in touch. You know, we have a weekly newsletter. You can sign up on our Facebook page under sign up for email. You can go to our website and stay abreast of what is going on. We also have a youth church continuing to be present for young people online. This afternoon at noon and at 1 o'clock, our youth coordinators, Carrie and Blaine, will be doing stories, and the links to hook up with that are on our Facebook page. So what we're going to do right now is sing a closing song, blessing you all on your way, and I'll have a closing final blessing for us.
Let it shine for everyone, so we all may know, and we all may see that we are one great family. Light your lamp and pass it on. Let it shine for everyone, so we all may know, and we all may see that we are
So blessings on you all, my family, all one great family. And I invite us all to remember that faith is a bird that feels dawn breaking and sings while it's still dark. Let us remember to sing, to reach out, not to be alone. Stay in touch. We do have spiritual practice calls every morning at 9. I invite you to check out our Facebook page and join us. Sign up for our online classes coming up. Blessings, each of you. Stay safe, stay open-hearted, reach out. I love you. Blessings and peace to each and every one of you. And thank you so much for joining us. See you next Sunday.